the best plants that you can grow indoors. So obviously plants need sun, a lot of sun, some more than others. But as long as you get enough sun from your windowsill, you should be able to grow at least a few things. And I'm mainly going to be talking about edible indoor plants here. I'll probably make another video about non-edible plants like snake plants and things. But this one is about edible plants. So I have my grandmother to thank for this because she grew quite a lot of parsley in her home. Both indoors and outdoors. Doesn't really matter because parsley, as long as it's in a cool, moist area, it should be pretty good to go. You know, it doesn't need a lot of sun. It's mostly more of a shady plant. And like I said, parsley is like the staple herb. If you look up anything, any recipe that requires a pan of some kind, or even a pot, it's gonna ask for parsley at some point. I've never come across anything that doesn't need parsley. Fresh parsley is much better than dried parsley. Unfortunately, I've been stuck with dried parsley for quite a long time, but fresh parsley is super aromatic, has a great flavor, and you can easily grow it indoors. Again, you need a nice windowsill for that, so at least it gets a little bit of sun. You don't need to water it too much, you know, be careful not to overwater it. Again, the main thing is it doesn't get too hot, it doesn't get too dry. You know, it's more of a cool sort of plant. Then, besides the parsley, which is a pretty reliable option, you know, it probably won't die as long as you follow the previous tips that I already gave. Another really good option is basil. Now, I've learned the hard way that basil does not like hot temperatures similar to the parsley. It will just get destroyed. It does not like the heat. Which is why it's a really good option for your indoor windowsill or table or anything else, any other surface. Basil is more of a delicate plant, I would say. You know, you gotta be a little bit more particular in the way you trim it, and you gotta make sure it doesn't bolt and, you know, the whole plant is ruined. And the pests, you know, basil is a little bit more difficult, but it tastes really good. There's a dish I really like to eat called, what's it called? Caprese, something. Basically, slices of mozzarella, slices of tomato, and some basil, and some balsamic vinegar, a little bit of salt. It's an Italian dish. It's delicious. Anyway, besides that, you can use basil for your tomato sauce, for your spaghetti, for your pesto, so it's a great thing to have. It's extremely versatile, and it smells great. It's really fresh. Then, if you're not in the mood for basil, thyme is another good option. I would say thyme is more resilient compared to both parsley and basil. It can withstand some hotter temperatures, a little bit more sun. I've tested this myself in the hot Florida sun. You can definitely withstand a little bit of it. And of course, thyme I would say is one of my favorite herbs. I love sprinkling some thyme on, you know, some chicken, some baked chicken or things like that. It's a good flavor. Another really good, reliable herb, you know. I always like the idea of having just a windowsill just filled with herbs, you know. You could just go there when you're cooking and just take all your herbs. Besides that, cilantro is another obvious choice. I'm not a big fan of cilantro. Some people think it tastes like soap. I don't. I just don't really care for it. Unless it's in like a pico de gallo. Then that's more fun. But it is a really good option if you enjoy cooking Mexican food or similar types of food, because cilantro is an extremely popular option there. Lots of Asian dishes use it as well. And it's really good for sauces especially, or just to put on top of, you know, chicken or something like that. It's pretty similar to parsley in both looks and also how it grows. It's a pretty delicate herb, I would say. Again, it kind of needs a cooler, a little bit more shady area. Don't overwater it, you know, that sort of thing. So it's a little bit more fickle, but it's still a good option to have, especially if you really enjoy cilantro. Mint, of course, is another very nice one. So mint is nice not just to add to your food, but also just for the smell, you know? You could just grind up the leaves, it releases that really beautiful mint smell. Some people dry it up and make little, I don't know what it's called, sachets or something to make their home smell nice. I've never done that. I have grown mint though, and I've used it in tea. So it's a pretty nice thing to have. And besides tea, obviously, some people like to add it for a little bit of contrast to their steaks, you know, things like that. It's a really nice thing to have, you know, especially if you like to cook. You could just toss some mint into the nearest cooking utensil. And then rosemary is my last option that I would recommend growing indoors. Rosemary is the sturdiest herb I've ever grown. I kind of gave up on my rosemary plant at some point, where I just kind of left it out on the patio in the 90-degree heat and let it just roast for several months, and it survived for a long time until it finally died. It finally gave in. It's a really sturdy plant. There are some things you have to be careful about. So I would say rosemary is so sturdy because it's a Mediterranean plant. You know, it's used to the heat. So again, this is more versatile. You don't have to worry about it nearly as much as the others. But the main thing here, because, you know, if you want to get a sprig of rosemary for your chicken or something, you want a nice green sprig. The problem is, as your rosemary gets older, it's going to want to get woody. You know, this woody stalk, and of course you don't want to cook with wood, a twig. So there are a few things you can do. I'll probably talk about that in a different video about rosemary. But, you know, you gotta keep an eye, because after about a year, your rosemary is going to want to get a little bit woody. So that's the main thing you have to worry about. Other than that, you could just let it be, and it'll just kind of do its own thing. You can get it whenever you want. Those are my main recommendations for plants that you can grow, well, specifically edible plants that you can grow indoors. Now, I would say it's much more difficult to grow like more typical produce plants, like a tomato or a bell pepper or things like that. You know, usually it's best to grow herbs inside of your house because they just like that temperature better. But, you know, I'm sure some people have successfully grown other things indoors. That's all I have to say for this video. If you liked it, of course, you can like and subscribe. And I make a few videos throughout the week, so stick around for those.